Imagine waking up to find that $1.50 billion just vanished. No alarms, no gunshots, just pure digital theft. This is the story of the biggest crypto robbery in history, and it could happen to any of us. April 1, 2024, Singapore. The sun was just starting to rise over the skyscrapers of this global financial hub, and inside the ByBit headquarters, the workday was about to kick off like any other. Employees sipped on their morning coffee, screens lit up one by one, and the world of cryptocurrency continued spinning without a care. But unknown to everyone inside that building, a perfectly timed and highly coordinated cyberattack was already underway, an attack that, by the end of the day, would become the largest crypto heist in history. Over $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other assets would vanish, as if into thin air. Unlike the traditional bank robberies of old, this heist required no ski masks, no getaway cars, and no shootouts. All it needed was brains, patience, and an intricate web of deceit spanning continents. The people behind this jaw-dropping theft? A group of elite hackers believed to be operating under the North Korean regime, a shadowy team known in intelligence circles as Lazarus Group. But how did they do it? How did a small group of individuals manage to outsmart one of the most secure cryptocurrency exchanges on the planet? Well, to understand that, we need to rewind the clock about 6 months before the breach took place. In late 2023, tensions around cryptocurrency security were already at an all-time high. Exchanges were pouring millions into firewalls, multi-factor authentication, and cold storage wallets. But even with all these defenses, hackers knew that the weakest link wasn't the servers, it was the humans operating them. In Pyongyang, North Korea, a covert program known as Bureau 121 had been working behind closed doors for years, training some of the brightest young minds in coding, social engineering, and network penetration. These weren't just hackers, they were soldiers in an invisible cyber army, tasked with funding North Korea's isolated regime through any means necessary. And ByBit? Well, ByBit had unknowingly painted a target on its own back. Boasting millions of users and handling billions in daily transactions, it was a jackpot too tempting for Lazarus Group to resist. The plan started small, with something as simple as a LinkedIn message. A fake recruiter posing as a high-ranking executive at a prestigious tech company reached out to several ByBit employees. The message offered incredible job opportunities, stock options, and salaries double what they were currently making. It seemed legit. Professional logos, authentic email addresses, even real phone numbers to call. And when an ambitious systems engineer at ByBit responded, the trap was set. Over the next few weeks, what looked like innocent job interviews slowly turned into technical assessments. The engineer was asked to install a proprietary communications tool to complete his tasks, but in reality, it was sophisticated spyware. And just like that, without even realizing it, the back door to ByBit's fortress was wide open. By early March 2024, the Lazarus Group had full, silent access to several key internal systems at ByBit. They could see wallet addresses, transaction records, even some of the security protocols designed to protect the funds. But they knew better than to move too fast. One wrong move, and the alarm bells would ring across the crypto world. Instead, they spent weeks carefully studying the exchange's operations, mapping every system, identifying vulnerabilities, and more importantly, learning exactly when the internal audits happened. Timing was everything. They discovered that during certain scheduled maintenance windows, large amounts of crypto would be moved between cold and hot wallets. During those windows, security monitoring was temporarily reduced, and the internal chaos of handling billions made it easier for small anomalies to be overlooked. The hackers planned to strike during one of these maintenance periods, blending in with legitimate transactions to mask their theft. It was a plan that required patience, precision, and nerves of steel. Meanwhile, inside ByBit, no one suspected a thing. The engineer who had unknowingly installed the spyware was praised for his dedication and even given more responsibilities. Ironically, the same person the company trusted most had become their greatest vulnerability. And outside of the company, no alarms were triggered. Blockchain analytics firms, cybersecurity companies, government agencies, nobody saw it coming. The Lazarus Group had perfected the art of invisibility. By March 29, 2024, all the pieces were in place. The hackers had built scripts to automate the movement of stolen funds, routing them through a maze of decentralized exchanges, privacy coins, and mixing services. The goal was to make the trail so complicated that even the most powerful blockchain analysis tools would struggle to trace it. Then, on April 1st, under the cover of a scheduled system update, they launched the attack. In a matter of minutes, the equivalent of $1.5 billion was siphoned out of ByBit's hot wallets. The assets were split into thousands of smaller transactions, spread across dozens of blockchains, and swapped between different cryptocurrencies to create a tangled mess of digital footprints. By the time ByBit's security team realized something was wrong, it was already too late. The funds had been dispersed into the digital ether, scattered across the world like grains of sand in a storm. The internal panic was immediate and overwhelming. Emergency meetings were called. Cybersecurity experts were flown in. Blockchain forensic firms were hired to try to follow the money. But the damage had been done. And the masterminds behind the biggest crypto heist in history were already long gone. At first, ByBit tried to keep the incident under wraps, hoping to recover some of the stolen assets before news of the breach went public. They coordinated with law enforcement agencies, blockchain analytics companies, and even contacted other major crypto exchanges to freeze any suspicious incoming funds. But within a few days, rumors began to spread. Users noticed strange delays in withdrawals, unusual maintenance windows, and vague statements about technical issues on ByBit's official channels. Crypto Twitter picked up the scent almost immediately, and soon, speculation exploded across social media. Had ByBit been hacked? Was there an inside job? Was this another FTX-style collapse in the making? Pressure mounted, and within a week, ByBit had no choice but to go public. In a hastily arranged press conference, their CEO appeared visibly shaken as he confirmed that a security incident had resulted in the unauthorized transfer of a significant amount of assets. He didn't disclose the full extent of the loss, not yet, but by then, blockchain analysts were already calculating the missing sums. Wallets known to be associated with ByBit had been drained of over $1.5 billion in various cryptocurrencies. The crypto world was stunned. This wasn't just another hack. It was an attack on one of the biggest and most respected exchanges in the industry. Confidence across the sector took a hit. Other exchanges tightened their security, users rushed to move their assets to cold storage, and regulators around the world sharpened their scrutiny on crypto firms. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the FBI had already launched an investigation. Almost immediately, they suspected North Korean involvement. The Lazarus Group had left subtle clues, tiny fingerprints invisible to most, but detectable by experts who had spent years studying their tactics. There were similarities to previous attacks on other exchanges like KuCoin and Ronin Network. The methods of social engineering, the multi-layered laundering of stolen assets, the use of obscure privacy tools, it all pointed to the same team. But this time, they had pulled off something far bigger than anything before. The FBI worked quickly, coordinating with Interpol and cybersecurity firms across several continents. Tracing the stolen assets was like chasing shadows. The hackers had anticipated every move, using sophisticated techniques to launder the funds through a web of decentralized finance platforms, mixing protocols, and cross-chain bridges. Even when authorities managed to freeze small portions of the stolen assets, the vast majority had already slipped beyond reach, fragmented across countless anonymous wallets. The world watched as one of the most daring and successful cyber heists in history unfolded, with few answers and even fewer solutions. And for ByBit, the nightmare was just beginning. Internally, ByBit was falling apart. The pressure from users, regulators, and investors was relentless. Every decision was scrutinized, every announcement dissected. Questions piled up faster than the company could answer them. How had this happened? How had a supposedly secure, billion-dollar exchange been so easily compromised? The truth was painful. Despite all the money spent on cybersecurity, it had still come down to human error. A single engineer, tricked by a fake recruiter, had unknowingly opened the gates to the enemy. No amount of firewalls or encryption could have stopped that once the malware was inside. For weeks after the attack, ByBit tried to project confidence. They promised to reimburse affected users, improve their security systems, and work closely with law enforcement to bring the attackers to justice. But behind closed doors, executives were terrified. Rebuilding trust in the crypto world was a monumental task, and many doubted whether ByBit would survive the blow. Meanwhile, the Lazarus Group was celebrating. Based on intercepted communications and intelligence reports, U.S. authorities believed that the stolen crypto was being funneled directly into North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Every Bitcoin mixed, every Ethereum swapped, was funding missiles, research facilities, and weapons development. It wasn't just a robbery. It was an act of international aggression carried out through cyberspace. The Biden administration quickly issued a statement condemning the attack and promised to pursue those responsible with all available resources. Sanctions were tightened, diplomatic warnings were sent, and cybersecurity task forces were mobilized. But the reality was grim. The hackers were operating in one of the most closed-off and secretive nations in the world. They didn't need to hide inside North Korea's borders. They used servers in Russia, malware developed in China, and laundering services based in decentralized protocols that answered to no government. Tracking them was like chasing ghosts through a digital maze. And as the weeks turned into months, the likelihood of recovering the stolen assets grew smaller and smaller. ByBit's users, many of whom had lost their life savings, flooded online forums with anger, despair, and conspiracy theories. Lawsuits were filed. Investigations were opened. Governments debated new regulations to prevent something like this from ever happening again. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. The world had changed. In the era of digital money, no vault was safe. No lock was unbreakable. The Lazarus Group had proven that with enough patience, skill, and ruthlessness, even the most secure institutions could be brought to their knees. And somewhere in the shadows, they were already planning their next move. In the months following the heist, ByBit tried to rebrand itself. They launched massive PR campaigns, promised users better protections, and even rolled out a series of new security features with fancy names. But for many in the crypto community, the damage was irreversible. Trust, once broken, isn't something you can simply buy back with marketing. Meanwhile, the FBI and international agencies kept digging. They worked with blockchain intelligence firms to trace the stolen funds, following every small clue left behind. Tiny mistakes made by the hackers, a transaction that didn't fully anonymize, a server that wasn't completely wiped, gave investigators narrow windows to peer through. What they discovered was staggering. The Lazarus Group had built an entire infrastructure around crypto theft. There were fake companies, fake wallets, fake exchanges. They had layers upon layers of money laundering systems. Even experienced blockchain analysts were amazed at the complexity. And through it all, billions of dollars in stolen crypto were being slowly but surely siphoned into accounts that would eventually fund North Korea's illicit activities. It wasn't just about money. It was about power, leverage, survival. The hackers didn't just steal from ByBit. They stole from regular people, small investors, traders, entrepreneurs who believed in the future of digital currency. People whose dreams vanished with a few clicks of a keyboard. By mid-2024, pressure was mounting on global leaders to do something. Sanctions were tightened once again. International arrest warrants were issued for known Lazarus Group members, though everyone knew they would never be extradited from North Korea. Cybersecurity firms began urging exchanges to radically rethink how they protected user funds. Cold storage wasn't enough. Two-factor authentication wasn't enough. Even decentralized finance, once hailed as the answer to traditional banking vulnerabilities, was now seen as a double-edged sword. The message was clear. The digital world was evolving faster than anyone had prepared for, and the old rules no longer applied. For ByBit, survival meant more than just beefing up their servers. It meant changing their entire culture, from one that chased growth and speed at all costs, to one that prioritized caution, security, and resilience. It was a painful transformation, and many wondered if it was already too late. By the end of 2024, the story of the ByBit hack had become a symbol of the new digital battlefield. It wasn't fought with guns or tanks but with lines of code, fake job offers, and invisible attacks that could bankrupt companies and destabilize entire economies overnight. For the Lazarus Group, it was another victory. They had pulled off the largest crypto heist in history without firing a single shot. Their operation proved that even the most modern, well-funded companies could be brought down by old tactics like deception, patience, and human weakness. For ByBit, the road to recovery was long and uncertain. They spent hundreds of millions trying to rebuild trust, tighten security, and keep regulators from shutting them down. They cooperated fully with the FBI and other agencies, but the truth was, there was little they could do to fix what had already been broken. The stolen crypto was gone. Hidden, mixed, and restructured so thoroughly that even the best forensic teams in the world struggled to trace it. A few wallets were frozen, a few addresses blacklisted, but it was a drop in the ocean compared to the massive loss they suffered. The bigger loss, though, wasn't just the money. It was the belief that digital finance could be truly secure, that the world could move into a new era without dragging the dangers of the old one along. The ByBit heist taught everyone a hard lesson, that innovation always brings new vulnerabilities, and that in a world where everything is connected, a single weak link can bring everything crashing down. And somewhere, in the dark corridors of the internet, the hackers watched quietly as the world tried to pick up the pieces, already planning their next strike. Because for them, the game was just getting started. If you found this story unbelievable, imagine what's still happening out there right now. Subscribe for more unbelievable true stories, and stay safe out there.